Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Smith from Backbench Coder. So this is a part 5 of this project, and again guys, if you have not watched the introduction part, please watch that to get an idea about the final product. I'll put the link in the description box. I'll also put the link of the source code up to the last part, so if you want to continue from this part, you can just clone the repo and then follow along. Okay, so in this video, we are going to create this about page. We are also going to talk about some of the fundamental topics of Next.js like get server-side props, get static props, API folder and all. So this will be an interesting video. And by the way guys, this is my final product and this is my ongoing project, which is this bye bye world. So far we have created this sidebar, this navbar and this bye bye world. So in this video we are going to convert this bye bye world to this beautiful about component or about page, yeah. So let's see how can we make this. So inside this about page I have two sections. One is this about me and then this services. So what are the services I offer or I am good at? So this front-end development, back-end development, API and all. Okay, so obviously we are going to create a component, let's say service component or service card. Every component is a single service card, and then you can pass the props individually, or a better approach will be make an array of JavaScript objects where every object is a service and then just map over the array and render the service component. So we will be creating an array of objects where every service is an object. So go back to your array, not array code. Let's create the array of objects. So let's name this data. So inside your root directory, data.ts, which will hold all our data. So the name of the array is services. So services, this will be an array, and I'm also going to export this so that I can import this in my about page. So export, cool. Now inside the services array, every object will be a service. So let's create an object. So every service should have a title, a description and an icon. So let's create our first service, which is title, let's say front-end developer, and then about, which will be my description, some lorem blah blah blah, and then an icon. And this icon is coming from the React icons package. So just import an icon from this React icons package. Import something from React icons /ri, the provider, and the name of the icon is ri computer line or something like that. Computer line. Save this, cool, and just put this ri computer line as this icon. Beautiful. So this is my one service ready. I'll have a bunch of services, but now I'm also using TypeScript. So let's take the advantage of TypeScript. But before that, let's see what's the problem without TypeScript. Let's say you are creating another service. So just copy this and paste this here. Beautiful. And now you made a typo. This is not title, this is title. And then let's say this title is not a string. You made this something called 123. But look at this, JavaScript does not complain about this. Like everything is fair in love, word and JavaScript. But we don't want that. We want to make this strongly typed array. So let's create an interface. Interface is a part of TypeScript. You can refer interface as custom type. Well, the definition of interface will be something like interface describes the shape of an object. That's it. Let me show you. So let's create an interface. So interface, the name of the interface is service, but I like to use I as the prefix so that I can recognize this as interface. I service and then a brace. Okay, cool. Let's define the shape. So I'll have a property which is title. The type of the title should be string, cool, and then about, which will also be a string, and then icon. Now what is the type of this icon? It should be something like React icon or icon type. But how can you find the type of a component? How can you find that? Okay, let me show you a trick. So just hover over a component, in this case our React icon, this ri computer line, just control and click. Look at this. This is my source code. Look at the name of the page. This is index.d.ts, and then the type is icon type. So colon icon type, look at this, ri computer line colon icon type. So type is icon type. So just copy this and go to your data.ts and import this. Import in a curly brace icon type from React icon. So obviously, cool. And just grab this icon type and put it as a type of icon. Save this, cool. And now just set the type of this array. So services, put a colon. This should maintain the array of this iService shape. So iService, which is our interface, and just an array, cool. Look at this. Oh, the name of the interface, nice. And now look at this. we have an error. So now TypeScript says, the message is title does not exist in type iService. Did you mean title? Yeah bro, I mean title. So title. Now we have another error. Just hover over this. Look at this. Type number is not assignable to type string. Remember, this title should have a type string, but in this case this is number. So just make this title, and now the error is gone. So that's the beauty of TypeScript. Okay, so just save this and put this interface in a defined file so that I can import this in my about component. About page, not component. A file name called type.ts. Okay, put this here. Also export this. Beautiful. And this icon type should be auto imported. Let's see. Yep, imported icon type from React icons. And go back to your data.ts and import this iService interface. Control space should be auto imported. Yep, auto imported iServices from /type. And remove this React icons. We don't need that. Okay, cool. So this is our basic shape. Now let me just copy an array of services. Okay, coming back in a second. Okay, so I have an array, so just remove this dummy objects and put my beautiful array. Yep, I need to import the icon. So at the top, import the icons. Nice. Okay, so this is exactly the same shape. Every object contains this icon, title and about. And notice that inside this about, I have this B tag. B means bold in HTML. So this HTML, this wrapper will be rendered in bold font weight, and then this CSS in bold, this React.js in bold, just some extra focus on my skills, on your skills I should say. So just create your own array with your own skills, and if you want to use this data.ts, I'll put the link in the description box. Okay, save this. Cool. And now just go to your index.tsx, which is our home page, which holds our about page, lot of page. So index.tsx. Cool. So inside this index.tsx, just import our services array so that I can map over this. So import from /data. The name of the array is services. Cool. Just log this inside our client. Log. Client means client side rendering, by the way, because we are gonna see how server side rendering works in this video. Oh, not client. Services. Okay, save this. Let's see. So let's go back to the project and refresh the page, which is localhost 3000. Refresh. We don't need to refresh. And then go to console. Okay, look at this. I have an array of objects, array of services. And then I have this front-end development, about, and then this icon. Look at this RI computer line, which is a functional component. Now this method perfectly suits our app, but let me show you this in a different way, which is called server-side data fetching. I really want to show you this method, as this is one of the fundamental features of Next.js, like this server-side data fetching, this API endpoint and all. So let's do it. But before that, let's imagine this data, this bunch of objects is coming from a database, and you have created an API endpoint to fetch the data. So let's do it. Just imagine this data is coming from a database and you have created an API. So how can you create an API endpoint? You have to create a file inside your API folder. So inside this pages, inside this API, look at this, I have this hello.ts. This means this hello is the endpoint. So just go back to your browser and then go to your localhost 3000 and go to your URL and then just put API/hello. It should return you something. Look at this, I have this response name John Doe. So whatever file you created inside this API folder will be converted to an endpoint. How cool is that? Okay, so let's do it. Delete this hello.ts. But again guys, in our app it does not really make any sense to create this endpoint to get the static content. Okay, but I want to show you, because this is a Next.js project for beginners and you need to know the fundamentals of Next.js. I love Next, to be honest. So let's create a file inside this API folder. Let's name this services. So new file services. It means the endpoint name is services.ts. Cool. So let's create the endpoint. Export. We also need to export this, because in the build time Next.js will compile this endpoint. Export default. Typical request response. So request response and arrow function. Cool. Now you can set the type of this request. So type of the request is next API request, sorry. and the response is Next API response. Dog is barking, it's 2:39 AM. Anyway, Next API response, cool. I also need to import this. I don't know why auto import does not work sometimes. Like, I know why it does not work, but why it doesn't work? Anyway, so now inside this you can check if the request is get, post, delete or update. By default it will be a get request, and we also need a get request in this context because we want to fetch the data from the server. So just grab the services array, import. Now again just imagine this services array is coming from a database, from // data, and the name of the array is services, cute services. Okay, now if you get a get request on this URL, we will respond this with this services array. So response res.status, the status of the request is 200 if successful. In this case it will be successful every time because you are just getting the static content and then send this as a response. So .json, convert this to JSON, services, cool. But before that, let me just log this out. I want to show you something. Log services. So this will be logged in the server. Let's see. The endpoint name is services. Just go to your browser. It should work. API/services. Enter. Let's see. Look at this. I have the response, but notice that I don't have the icon. Why? Just go back to your server. Close this sidebar. Where is my console log? Yup. Look at this, the icon is functional component, but this Express API does not know anything about the React icon. It has no idea about what is React component and all this stuff, so it basically omits the data and just filter out this title and about, right? So what I mean is, in this particular context, where you have this React component as the value, this thing will not work. So you just need to go back to our first approach, which is this one. Just import this as object, as plain object, and then just map over this. But that's the concept of API, guys. Okay, you just need to create a file inside your API folder and it will automatically be converted to an API endpoint. And now let's see server-side data fetching. So just close this, close all the unnecessary files, close this, close this, close this, close this, index.txt, open this, cool. So in our Next.js app, we can use three types of data fetching technique. One is get server-side props, second one is this get static props, and third one is get static paths. So let's see how this get server-side props and get static props works. So you have an endpoint which offers the service, right? This servers.ts. Let's use this endpoint. So inside this index.txt, to use our get server-side props, we need to create a function which is called get server-side props. As simple as that. Actually, make this function outside of this default index. Okay. The name of the function is get server-side props. Get server-side props. Now it will get a context which is called page context, which will give you the information about your route, the page. The type of the context is get server-side props context. Get server-side props context, yup. That's a typical TypeScript thing. Now we don't need this context here, but what is important is you just need to return a specific shape from this get server-side props. And the shape is an object, and in this object you need to put a property which is called props, and this props will be your props. So the result inside this function, so whatever calculation you make inside this function, inside the server-side function I should say, will be passed as the props, and then these props will be passed to this page. So inside this index page you can just grab these props, as simple as that. Okay, so let's do some logic inside this get server-side props function. So basically we want to make a request to our services endpoint and just grab our services data and then pass this services data as props. And inside these props I can access the services data. So let's do it. I'll be using fetch. Now remember, this fetch is not your browser fetch, this is your Node.js fetch, because whatever is happening inside this get server-side props function will be executed in your server, not on your client. Fetch, the URL is, let me just copy this, is localhost API service. Copy this, copy this, copy this, put it here. Beautiful. So this will return me a promise, handle this using await. Also I need to make this asynchronous function. Okay, that is cool. So just grab this data as response and then convert this to JSON. So const data is res.json. This will also return me a promise. So handle this using await. Cool. And then just pass this data as services. So inside this props, the key is services and the value is data.services. Beautiful. I also want to make a console log so that I can show you some interesting thing. Console log, server, and then this is services. Cool. Save this, refresh the page, go back to your home page, refresh the page and go back to your console. Look at this, I have the data inside our server. Let me just expand this. Cool. So now basically I can grab this data from our props. So just go back to your page, destructure this, so services, because this is the value coming through these props. This props, the key is the services, so I can grab this as services and just console log as client, client. Cool. Save this, go back to your page. Now when you refresh the page, the whole page will be revealed and everything will be console log in the server. Look at this, I have the server and I also have the client. But now just go back to another route. Let's say this projects, click on projects, I have my projects. Now again go back to your about and now just go back to your server. Look at this, I only have the server data. Look at this, I have the server data, the page revealed, and then I have the server data. Now what does it mean? So this function is executed every time the page is refreshed. You can try again, so just go back to another route. Let's say this time resume, and then again go back to your about. Look at this, look at your server. We have this server data, right? So it means whenever you go back to this page, this particular index page, the home page, this function will be re-executed, this get server side props. So what are the use cases? Where can you use that? One advanced use case is the home page of your e-commerce site. Let's say your home page is built using machine learning and that machine learning data is updated with the user's interaction. So in that case you need to rebuild the page every time user refresh the page, right? So that's an advanced use case. You can also use this in your social media feed. So every time the user refresh the page, the feed should be rebuilt. So that's an use case of get server side props. Now just tell me, do I need this get server side props in our app? In this particular app, we are only getting some static content from the database. I mean not database, but imagine this is coming from a database. Do I really need that? Because this is ultimately the static content. So for this you have something called get static props. How can you use this? Very simple, just copy this function. This is exactly the same. You just need to change the name of the function. So just copy this. Sorry. Okay. The name of the function is get static props. So get static props. It will also get the page context, but the type is get static prop context, props context. Cool. Just save this. Everything is same, but this function will be executed one time. It will be called only during the build of this project. That's it. But in development mode, it will be executed every time you refresh the page, just like your get server side props. Let me show you. So this is my server again. Let me just comment this out because it will give you an error if you use both the data fetching techniques. Comment this out. Cool. So save this, refresh the page, and now just go back to your resume, go back to about, look at your server. This is your client. This client will be executed only one time, and that is because when you refresh the page, it reveals your component and this component. Let me just remove this client console log for the clearer console. Save this, and now again go back to your resume. Let it refresh. Hot reloading. And by the way guys, please hit the like button if you are enjoying this project, because this is 3:13 AM and I need to record this video. So I have this bye bye word, which is our index page. Go back to resume, again go to about, look at this. This is server. Again go back to resume, go back to about, look at this. This is again re-executed server. So this will be executed every time you refresh the page, only in development mode. Let me show you what happened in the production mode. So let me just build this project, open another tab. So npm run build. This is a command to build the project. And guys, make sure your localhost 3000 server is running if you are building this project with me. This localhost 3000, because this build will be making a request on this server, on this particular API endpoint, and this server should be running. Let's see. This is creating an optimized production build. Can you see this? Look at this data, this icon, title, about, this server. This server is the same console log, which is this server. So what does it mean? It means it executed this function during the build time. And now let's run this production ready build. So close the other server, terminate the job, and go back to another terminal and npm run start, which is the command to run your production build. So npm run start. Look at how fast this is, and just refresh the page. Boom, like in a second. Refresh the page, boom. Projects, resume, about. Anyway, the point is just go back to your server and see the console. You can't see any console log. Why? Because this function is executed only when the build time. That's it. So that's what I wanted to show you. So just close this development server. Now where can you use this? Where can you use this get static props function? You can use this in a page which is completely static, or the data which is coming to that page is completely static. Let's say your FAQ page, frequently asked question, or your portfolio, or a blog. There are a lot of use cases. So let's again run the development server, npm run dev, cool. And by the way guys, during the production, this localhost 3000 should be coming through an environment variable, because in your production there is nothing called localhost 3000. This video is getting longer. In the next video we are going to render our about component, not component, about page. Okay, so again go back to our first approach, which is just import the JavaScript object and render over this. So yeah, we have covered a lot of things of Next.js in this video. If you have enjoyed this, if you have any feedback, please let me know. See you in the next video. I need to make some Maggie. Bye.